Welcome back to the Shared Voices podcast, where we are with Sam and Cory again. We're going to continue our conversation from last episode. If you did not hear the last episode, when this concludes, go back and check that out. It'll give you a little bit of background on Cory and Sam, and what an awesome opportunity for us to all get together. Like we said last time, this was never planned, but boy, God's plans are better than ours, that's for sure. And guys, let's just jump back in. I'm excited to talk more about our last conversation about just the power of talking, talking, first responders talking and being open, honest, and transparent. And how when we are open and honest as first responders and we share that, it becomes contagious. And people start to share and start to share and start to share because you shared. And it becomes like a wildfire of awesomeness, where people are getting hope, they're getting joy, they're hearing about resources, and healing is happening. And that's what the 1042 project is about, is to be there for first responders, to where when they're struggling, whether it's with addiction, PTSD, financial issues, relationship issues with kids. When you're a first responder, it's hard to have a place where you can go and talk and get some help and find about resources that can help you with that. And that's what 1042 Project's whole mission is to be that community for first responders to come to, be open and honest, and be able to talk about what's going on, hear from other first responders, and we want to help you get to the resources that are out there. Not only do we want to do that, we also want to equip our first responders. So we are in the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, doing some programming there on the evenings. And a lot of people thought it was silly. Like, why do you guys go to the Law Enforcement Academy and do that? They're all young. They haven't been exposed to trauma. Cory just did the look that I think I made at the time. That's exactly why we need to be doing it. Because when you go into a battle, Sam, you have the tools that are on your belt. If you're in the Army, if you're a police officer, you're a firefighter, you grab your gear bag, you grab whatever you put on your body, you go into that fire. When you get in there, that's all you got. You can call for help from the outside, but that's all you got. So if we can equip first responders and put tools on their tool belt for their mental health journey and for their whole first responder journey, if we can give them some tools ahead of time and equip them so they already know going into it that these reactions from these calls are going to happen, these emotions are going to flare up, and it's okay. That's where the healing happens. Before I keep rambling and going on to something else, we are going to jump right in. And last time we got to hear from Cory. This time I want to jump in and hear from Sam. Sam, you introduced yourself a little bit last time, but let's just hop into your story, kind of your career, and what led you to sitting on this couch today on a podcast, because your journey's wild, just like everybody's.
Yeah. Well, where to start, I guess, is the biggest question.
Well, my mom and dad really loved each other, and then
So again, in my introduction, mentioned that I started in the fire service at 15 as a project to do with my dad. We had moved across the state to a new community, needed something to do together. It was kind of his idea. I was hooked day one, which ended up being a curse and a blessing.
Yeah. Especially at 15.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier, you started 20 and you thought that was too young. 15 was definitely too young. Definitely too young for some of the things I had seen. If any indication that my career was going to be one of those where I'm a black cloud, that should have been, probably the biggest red flag starting out is, the first call at, well, not even quite 15 years old, was a gentleman who amputated his toes with a lawnmower. And this department was kind enough to hand me a bag full of ice and said, "Here, why don't you go find those toes?"
Like an Easter egg hunt, but for toes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
Again, just shy of 15 years old. Didn't scare me away from the service at that time. I'm like, I guess this is kind of cool.
This little piggy went to the market. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
But yeah, I think, what led me to sitting here with you on this couch today. I retired from the fire service due to a back injury. Mm-hmm. But when I got out, I never really got out mentally. Yeah. Was still very drawn back to the things I had been on. it was such a blessing to be connected to you through a coworker who met you at Godspeed Equine.
Yeah.
He said after hearing your story, he instantly thought of me. He was so excited to give me your card. And I just remember him handing me your card. I looked down at him like, yeah, I know him.
That's awesome.
And but we hadn't talked for, I hadn't seen you in 10 years since you had left Indianola.
I disappeared, right?
Pretty much.
But into isolation.
Yep. So my story is, a little different than the story you guys shared. You guys have very impactful stories. I think what was great about tearing down the walls with you guys is the self-reflection. My self-destructive behaviors were very different.
Yeah.
My self-destructive behaviors were isolation, not seeking out help, not seeking out personal relationships, not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
I became a work addict where, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. That was enough to keep me busy, keep my mind busy. But when I wasn't working, what did I do? I went home and slept.
Yep.
I went home and found something to distract myself that the real world didn't exist. And, I think you hear people talk about escaping the real world, but the reality of me escaping the real world was I wouldn't watch the news. I wouldn't watch, anything that would put me in touch to the real world. No newspapers, no nothing. And when I was in my house, it didn't exist. When I went off on my medical, it was during COVID. That did not help anything. So now I'm without a job. I'm sitting here saying, what am I going to do with my life? I had put every egg in that public safety basket, and isolation was just worse. I mean, everybody was isolated during COVID, but I just made it that much worse. But again, when we had the lunch the other week, tearing down those walls to be able to sit there and say it, I think every first responder is good at diagnosing their own problems. I know I have problems, but they don't admit it.
That's right.
We can sit there and say, yeah, I know I got this problem, but I'm not going to go seek help for it.
Yeah.
I am taking care of myself good enough,
We're all quick to help others, but not ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was 100% me. And I think how could my life be different today if I wasn't that way? It probably not. I don't like to think that because it's, doesn't matter. No.
Right.
But there are probably opportunities that I could have taken in the past. I'm very fortunate that my fiance was persistent because, again, part of that isolation led to me trying to, lightheartedly saying friend zone her. But, our relationship in my mind was never going to happen. And I was doing things to sabotage it, to give her reasons not to want to be with me.
Man, that's so common for first responders.
Yep. So again, maybe I'm fortunate that we weren't in a relationship prior when all this got real heavy because, we talk about the divorce and, thank goodness we didn't start a very positive relationship that turned negative. But she persisted through the negativity. I told you as we sat down this morning, we were doing our pre-marriage counseling at church right now with our pastor. And I sat down with her Sunday and said, what in the world have you been praying the last 2 weeks? Because, and Cassandra felt the same way. She just felt that she had seen a change in me. Us connecting, the conversations we've had, I felt different. And so fortunate to have that conversation to start breaking down those walls.
That's awesome, man.
I'm very much a personality. Cassandra calls me out on it all the time. Why are you about fixing me, but not yourself? And I don't think she says it in a bad way. We all have issues we need to fix, but she's like, you will go 110% on me, but you won't fix yourself at all. And she feels that's unfair. And isn't that all of us in public safety? We signed up to serve other people. It was a selfless act. But, bridging back to our conversation, the love of yourself. I told you guys Wednesday, I don't love myself.
Yeah.
Had that conversation Sunday with my pastor, and again, what better descriptor of taking care of other people? I was so afraid to say that to my pastor, not because I was afraid to admit I don't love myself, but I knew it'd be a knife through her heart. As a person who cared very much about me, who is, just a magnificent person. Like when you're afraid to say something because you're afraid of hurting somebody else, like that is pretty good description of being selfless, right?
Yeah.
And that conversation was very interesting because we're discussing, similar to ours, is it right not to love yourself?
Right.
And we all determined the answer was no. It's not right to not love yourself. I think part of it is the skewed. What does loving yourself mean?
Right.
I think I have just bastardized that definition of, loving yourself means you're going to take away from others, and it doesn't. I think in my own head, respect yourself is probably a better term for it.
Yeah.
Because you can love yourself and still help others.
Yep.
We have so many heroes across this nation that I personally say, how could you love yourself and put yourself in harm's way? Loving yourself is a protection mechanism, or that's how I see it. So that's why I like to say respecting yourself now. After that conversation is, you can respect yourself and still put yourself in harm's way. It's really hard to love yourself, and you wouldn't put your family in harm's way. You love your family.
Right. Loving yourself is the hardest for me. I can be more compassionate and give love to others a heck of a lot easier than I can myself. Like the monologue that goes on in my head, that I got to battle every day. It tries to eat itself up. I mean, it beats me down. I can say the worst things to myself, and that's something I still battle with, and I got to capture that thought and put truth to it.
Absolutely.
And that's sometimes the hardest part, is just knowing that. But as soon as you can capture that and put truth to it, man. And a lot of times you may not be able to, I know this may sound weird, but you may have trouble loving yourself, but getting around a group of people and talking about that and hearing other people's struggles can really help you learn how to love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel it's amazing the strides a week can make. Not saying that I love myself now, but it's the awareness, having a little bit more intention with how you live your life and how you do things. It's just.
Well, we love you.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
No, I would say the same thing as you, like trying to love yourself, for who you are. And, for me, it was, I would always dwell in the past and see who I was because of all these problems. I was a piece of crap, like I treated everybody, like we were talking about at lunch, when I walked through the door at the station, like I just instantly, I would just be that guy. So for me coming out, especially after treatment, like loving myself, like I know I have problems. I'm always going to have problems.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, like every day I wake up too, and just you start kind of breaking down yourself. Like, man, why I need to do this today, or now I can take those negative thoughts, kick them out of my mind. All I think about is positive now. Like you have to take negative thoughts, negative things about yourself, and make them positive.
Yeah.
I also feel like if you don't love yourself, truly love yourself for who you are, you can't truly love somebody else. You can't show that compassion. You think you can.
Yes.
But for me, I feel like it's false love, kind of, or false feelings. And since me loving myself and being okay with my past and what is to come, like my ex-wife and I are closer than we've ever been, even when we first started dating, which is, amazing. It's like you see that and you're like, crap.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like okay. Like, let's just keep doing this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think the other, or the inverse way of saying it, and it's something I see in my relationship, is it's really hard to let somebody love you if you don't love yourself. So it's hard to love somebody, but it's even harder to let them love you.
right.
So I often found the more affection I was being shown, the more I'd push it away,
Yes.
because it's like, I need to come up with a reason for you not to love me.
Yes.
And
Wow.
we're always
Well said.
hardest on the ones that we love the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I learned, and I was like, holy crap, like that is 100% true. Like other firefighters or other, first responders, you could, kind of talk or whatever. But like when I got home, like I would take it out on my wife, like verbally.
Yep.
Because she's the closest one to me. And we always do that.
Yes.
And then
they're there, we dump on them. We think, they can handle it. They know us. Boy, that's damage. We cause a lot of damage when we do that. A lot of damage.
100%. And you're not only are you damaged, but like now you're like Kaylin. She always say like I'm scarred.
Yeah.
Like you scarred me. And I'm like, which again goes back to me start breaking myself down. Like, man, I really did that. And
Mhm. Yeah, you can't take back things that are said. You can't.
right,
You can't take your actions back.
Yeah.
right.
That's,
And
all secondary trauma that we're giving to our spouses or loved ones.
right. So, you know, like you said, like we can dwell on the past. The past is good because you can go back and see how you were from there to now.
Yeah.
But I don't care about the past anymore.
Yeah.
I love that you said when you about how if you don't love yourself, it's hard to believe that other people can love you. Boy, that's real in my life. I've really had to struggle was learning that how much people do legitimate love me.
Yeah.
Because you know, if you talk it out, I guess it makes sense. If you don't love yourself, how could you possibly think that somebody would see the value in you enough to love you because you don't see it in yourself? And that held me back from a lot of relationships. Is that right there? Is I just always felt like, well, yeah, you love me until you figure out who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not gonna love me. You love me for what I'm shared with you so far, and that's why a lot of times we ruin relationships ahead of time. We ruin good things because we it feels so good, it feels so positive, but we just think that if they find out this one thing, they won't love me and they will leave me, and so then we become a relational partner with somebody, but we're not being honest with them.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And the other self-destructive behavior that I would say still struggle with is I became a person, and I don't know where it is in the psyche that causes this, what it is, but as I got burned out, I had that compassion fatigue in the field. I also noticed I tend to seek pain, you know, and Cory, you had talked about it earlier, you know, we tend to teach ourselves to be emotionless. We don't show happy. How many times have I heard from Cassandra, it's okay to be happy?
Yeah.
And that is such a weird feeling. But also on the other side, it's like the only thing that, because I've taught myself not to be happy, the only thing that I can feel is pain. So, you know, towards the end of my career, that compassion fatigue really kicked in. You didn't get any satisfaction from the mundane that we dealt with day in and day out. But then when it came to that next critical call, that next, you know, you described it, that sledgehammer call that's really going to deal you a blow. I wanted to be there. But I think a lot of it was mentally I needed that pain.
Yes.
You know, I would start surrounding myself in that stuff. And, you know, it wasn't that I wanted to be there to be hog the glory, be the guy that was on that next call that made the news. It was, this is going to make me feel something.
Yeah. And when you're numb, any type of feeling's good, you know, and that's the sad part. When you're numb, you'll go seeking any type of feeling.
It's weird that you say, like Cassandra always said, like, it's okay to be happy. Now that I can show emotions, I know what emotions are now. It's just not angry and pissed.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought those were the only ones.
Yeah, those were the
and
two.
worry.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I had.
Yeah.
There was never happy or crying or joyful. Now having those, like being happy and showing happiness, it's weird. Like it's a new feeling. You know, even Kaylin's like, it's weird. You know, like it's weird because this we haven't had this.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't done this before. Like, I'm like, I know. Just think it's weird for me. I think since I've been back, I bet you I've cried in front of her more times than when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And every time I do, it feels amazing because I know I'm still a human. I still have feelings. I can show those feelings.
And now she feels like she knows you even more. You're now becoming more, you know, becoming more together as one.
Yeah. And when you're talking about like honest, I think as first responders, we try to not lie, but we try to mask like the truth.
Yes. Mask it or minimize it, right?
Yes. So now it's like, just be honest. Like it may hurt, but I'd rather be honest with you and have you know everything that I've gone through or what I'm feeling than mask it. Because every time you mask it, man,
That's it.
Yep. You mask it and then you start, okay, well, I can do that one. Well, now it's 10 days down the road and you're like, really starting to eat at you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I should have just told the truth.
Yep.
Should have been honest.
That's where the healing happens, man.
Yeah. I think, as I diagnose my personality, as I, digest a lot of what we talked about, I think for a lot of public servants, a lot of people who do what we do, it's not necessarily teaching yourself to love yourself, not teaching yourself it's okay to have emotions, but maybe because of how we're wired, showing yourself when you do those things, the impact it has on others. And the reason I say that is, a good example is this last week, we got a early wedding gift from someone who couldn't attend our wedding. One of the few things on our registry that I think I even decided to have a say in. And as we're opening it up, I must have been smiling. I must have, looked happy. And as we're sitting there, I kept looking at Cassandra. I'm like, why are you smiling at me? Like almost to a frustrated, not really, and she's like, and her response was, because you're smiling.
Oh.
And, again, it was like, it's okay to be happy.
Yes.
Like she almost felt, it was kind of that childish, hey, I caught you, caught
you. Your mask down.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Mask down.
Thank you for saying the mask, because that's the perfect transition. Cory, you said it at lunch, and it is probably the biggest thing that has impacted me in the last week. Just the saying that revolves in my head is, it's okay to let the mask down.
Yeah.
I was coaching with the managing director of our office yesterday, to the point I was even tearing up as we're talking about it. But, every time I sit down with him, the first thing out of his mouth is, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And usually you don't have a great answer for that, but it's like, just a great way to start a conversation. And then he asked me how things were going. And I think I looked like a bumbling idiot, because every ounce of my being was trying to say it's going great.
Mm-hmm.
And like to the point I was physically starting to say it, and I'm like, nope, bringing it back. And finally I said, you know what? I had a revelation this week and explained it to him. I said, so letting the mask down, things aren't going great. I am nervous as hell right now.
Yes.
I'm coming up on my 1 year in the business. I'm not quite where I wanted to be. Like, I said, I need to learn it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to show these opinions and emotions.
Heck yeah.
And my coaching there, I got more from him in that half-hour coaching session than I have since I worked there. Just because it was being genuine, being authentic.
Yeah.
And
that's the only thing that changed, right? In the whole scenario, the only thing
Absolutely.
Same environment, same place, same person.
Deadlines didn't change. Nothing else has changed. It's just said, hey, I am afraid of this deadline. It is, and being able to say, hey, I'm getting locked up by this. Like, not that I don't think I can do it, but the stress of it is actually hindering me, and how do I get around this?
Yes. And what's cool about this is we're all sitting around talking, for our listeners. You guys, just not too long ago, none of us were talking to none of us were speaking. We kept everything to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about, this feeling of when we start to talk and the healing we get, like that's fresh. Like, what am I trying to say with that? What I'm saying is that there's a process to this. So I would have been scared to death, a few years back, to think I'd be on a podcast sharing my story, being open and honest about the things I went through and my feelings. So it's a process to get to where the three of us are, where we are now willing to open. For some, it maybe only be a week or so, but it's a process. So if you're not at that level where you're talking to anybody yet, you're still in that isolation. You guys know this, you're not broken. You're right where we were. It's okay that you don't know how to talk. It's okay that you don't know what to do with these emotions. That's what we're here for. That's why we do this, because you do need help you do need help with this. To get to a point to where someday you'd come on a podcast and share your story with hope and joy and smiling. And so the three of us that are sitting here, again, there's nothing special about us besides we're using our voice. And that's what we want for you guys. We want you guys to start to see and hear the difference in us and in our healing journey, because we know when you get to see that, it'll give you hope as well, to let you know that you have a community that loves you and want to help you through this healing process. I mean, Sam, you're a perfect testimony to, we met a week ago, and already what is happening in your life, what God's been revealing to you, and your fiance, man. What an awesome place to be in just such a short period of time.
Yeah.
Over nothing besides us being willing to sit down and talk about this, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. If you would have told me, even at lunch last Wednesday, that I was going to be sitting here on the podcast admitting things that I haven't admitted in 15 years,
Yep.
you know, it wouldn't have happened. But, you know, you talked about the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy being there, people saying, hey, they're fresh. They don't have the experiences. Why are you there?
Right.
We talk about the stigma that needs to be broke down. I think that's the way to do it. I really do. You know, we've got the old salts that will never change.
Yep.
And you've got the stories like Cory, myself, you, and in your case, we're out of the service. Like,
Yeah.
you know, outside of a project such as this, it's too late
Yep.
to cause that change. But even having two rookie officers that can reach out to each other and talk to each other and know it's okay, no matter what the old salt says,
Yep.
is going to drive that culture change.
That's right.
You know, Cory, in your story, you were talking about, you know, this is your make or break call. You know, and you either got to tough it up or get out. For me, I think the adversity in starting at 15 years old, I was the first ever cadet of this department. In fact, there was a group that tried to start a cadet program a few years prior that got told no, but then at that point had gotten to 18, were allowed on the department. They didn't exactly like me because I got something that they didn't get.
Yeah, it's human nature.
You know, absolutely. And so they were looking for any reason to say Sam can't go on calls. You know, Sam can't be here. So like Cory's story, no matter the call I went on, I had to be emotionally okay with it, or I couldn't show it because that was going to be the end of me. That was going to be the end of that program. And, you know, so
You had to turn off your emotions at a young age.
100%. So from, you know, first call picking up toes to, you know, having a flash freezing incident on the interstate that killed a 12 and 15-year-old and their mom, you know, pulling up on scene, seeing these kids really that were my age ejected from a vehicle dead on the side of the road, to a plane crash in the middle of a blizzard, you know, all those, I think if you talk to most career people would say, hey, that's a pretty good career for a 30-year professional.
Right.
And that was in 2 years for me, as a cadet. And then going through my professional career, it never slowed down. I had a triple double and single homicide. I was in court 3 different times as witness to crimes. You know, numerous bad fatality accidents. I just became known as a hurricane. If you were going to work with Sam, you were going to get something bad.
Yep.
I'll contest to that.
Yes, right. Yeah. I mean, the car accident you mentioned that we were on, and yeah, it just, you know, you can't control that. I believe God put me on those calls for a reason.
Yep.
I am so thankful for those experiences, no matter the damage they caused to me. Part of it is at least they didn't damage somebody else.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of it is, I think that was part of my calling. Dan, you really helped me be more at ease with my career change, my not being in the service of, you know, and I'd always tried to tell myself, hey, maybe my time there was done. Maybe I filled that mission. But I think having someone else acknowledge that and say, you know, you had talked about the seasons, God has seasons,
Yes.
really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of solidify that.
When you go out on medical, you know, I went out on medical disability. You went out on medical disability. When you go through that, you don't get a retirement ceremony
Nope.
like everybody else does. There's no cake and presents and laughs and jokes.
No.
It's turn in your stuff and disappear.
It's yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess I don't know your story. I'm guessing it was fairly similar to mine. There's actually a fair bit of adversity with it. People that don't agree that you should be on medical.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people that are going to fight you for that.
Yep.
And so not only is there no ceremony, sometimes it feels like you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately speaking, and speaking very candidly, you know, when you leave from your employer on medical disability, it is not called retirement to them. It is called termination.
Right.
So I struggled very, very much the day that I got fired. Because, and I actually have it on recording because I was smart enough to record my own termination just in case something came up.
Smart.
but as they were explaining it to me, I recall specifically stopping, pausing, and saying, "Are you firing me?" And the words that were said back is, "We are terminating your employment." They wouldn't, of course, say it as trying to sugarcoat,
Yeah, of course.
And so that makes it a very adverse thing. And so, yeah, when you're struggling mentally with the career you already had, and did I do enough? Could I have done better? And then you feel like you get thrown to the curb. Like
Right.
that is a tough process.
Happens a lot to our first responders. They feel like a piece of garbage just thrown to the side. Like, thanks for your service. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And they forget about you just a couple days later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's sad.
And specifically speaking to why I chose where I worked, I always worked at small agencies. I never wanted to be a metropolitan firefighter, specifically because I always wanted to go somewhere where I felt needed.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like a number.
Good point.
I served multiple roles. I wasn't just the firefighter paramedic. I was able to do building inspections, arson investigations. I managed our pharmacy for a while. I always wanted to feel like if I was gone, that impact would be felt.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I guess maybe I was wrong there too. I hope it was at least felt, but you still tossed aside like I was another number.
Right. Yep. That's how we treat each other, and that's unfortunate. That's why we're here to change that, man. Because that's and I told you that last week at lunch. You served your time and your community well. You gave everything you had to the cities that you worked in, and I know that because I've seen you do it, and so has Cory. You have given everything you can, including your health, to this community, and you are 100% considered retired to me. You have served your time. You have given it all. Some stay in it for 30 years and don't have as many issues. Some of them are in it for 5 years, and they've given it all. And there is no shame or guilt of the 30-year retirement or 22 or however your system is set up if you don't make it to that. So many of us hold the guilt and shame, which leads to suicide, addictions, and other things because we walk away feeling like a piece of trash. And that's not the case. You 100% walked out the calling in your life for that period of time. And I don't know about for you, but when I get a check for my retirement every month, it says retirement on the envelope, and on the paperwork, it's from my retirement pension, and I'm retired. I am not a medically weakling who went out on medical because I was weak and I just wanted out. I'd given everything I had so much I was trying to end my own life. And there's honor in that. And I'm tired of the first responder community not honoring first responders who have given it all and can't take it anymore and are willing to say, I got to step away for my good and for your good. And we need to honor that. We need to start having ceremonies for when people do that. And yes, I do know there are some first responders, like any system, that will abuse it and will try to go and get retired. You guys, we have to default on, we got to take them serious. And we have to, and we need to honor them, because that guilt and shame that I held for years when I left, I still, sometimes I'm feeling it right now as I talk about it. I still start to feel sad and depressed about it, because it's not how I wanted my career to end, In Indianola, they do a thing where they call it walking the line. They pull all the patrol vehicles and firefighter vehicles up on the square, and then the person that's retiring goes and kind of walks all the way around the square and shakes hands with everybody he's worked with, and this cool thing, and they have cake and all this stuff, and they send them out with honor, and we don't get that same thing, but yeah, we gave everything. And I'm not judging the system. I'm not trying to get angry at anybody. I'm just saying these are facts, and it's got to change. Cory, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, when you say like medically retired, right? You did give it your all, and nobody, you would have never expected to go out in medical.
No.
Right? Just like I would never expect me to have depression or try to end my life or PTSD or anxiety or marriage problems. Like, nobody thinks about that.
No.
It happens.
Yep. It's real life.
Yeah. You're still a human, but we don't think about it that way.
Yep.
And I feel like in the first responder community, that is shown as, I don't want to say coward, but like, oh, well, he's got mental health. Ooh, he's going.
What a
No.
pussy. I mean, this is
Yeah.
real. That's what the words we hear. I mean, I'm just going to use the word that we hear all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That word's thrown around a lot.
So, like I said at lunch, the number one cause of firefighter deaths, I'm just going to use firefighters, but
Yeah.
is cancer.
Yep.
That's number one. That's another thing we got to change. But I always thought number two was going to be cardiac or other medical faults. It's suicide.
Yep.
Number two leading cause in firefighters is suicide.
And first responders in general.
Yeah. And
Check your own stats, but from
Right.
what I've been told in my research, that's the same with first responders. We're taking our own lives at a higher rate than anybody's taken our life.
yeah.
We're doing it we're doing it to ourselves.
At
And we're
a-
doing it because we feel alone.
Right. And that's the thing. It goes back to that stigma. You have nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
You have nothing, which is beyond the faults. If anybody can say anything, that's false.
Yes.
Obviously, we're learning that now. We're trying to get that out there that there is always, no matter what, there's always somebody out there to talk to.
That's it. And that's the whole goal of the 1042 project and why we do what we do is so everybody can be heard. Everybody can be understood. Everybody can have a place where you can come with your problems, your issues, your addictions. There's no guilt. There's no shame. You can lay it on the table and allow some brothers and sisters around you to help you and get the help you need, get to it, because we're all dealing with it. And it's hard when you're dealing with these types of things that first responder deal with, right? When we start to deal with our pain, pain loves pleasure. Pain loves simple pleasure. Alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, isolation, gaming. Nothing wrong with gaming unless you're doing it to completely escape this whole world that we live in, right? Sometimes there's things that we can use that is okay to go out. Gaming is great, fishing is great, all that stuff is great when we're using it to decompress and in a healthy way, and then to enjoy the God's creation and to get back to that. I don't know where I was going to go with that, Sam. My whole mind just skipped. I know what I was going to say. It's wild. I think I've told you guys this before. The only thing I can think of is I still struggle for my life choices all those years. You guys, I went years and years and years never going to bed sober. I was addicted to alcohol, pain pills. So sometimes my brain will just quit on me.
It's all right.
And I get it back. And I used to be full of guilt and shame about it. Like, oh, look, this is who it is. I'm real. This is real things. And I'm no longer ashamed of it.
Yeah. No, let's to build on everything we've just been talking about, not all wounds are visible. Obviously mental health is the big one to pick on, again, is it cowardice, but it also goes to the, why aren't we open about it? Because I truly believe the people that are sitting there saying, oh, he went out on a mental health issue, like he should just tough it up, is dealing with their own issues.
There you go.
And it's not jealousy. It's not unfairness. It's you're not able to bring up your own issues and you don't understand how someone else did. But I'm going to use my back as the same thing. I have a 6-inch scar up the back of my back that is from a surgery. Nobody sees it. Nobody knows the pain I dealt with when I was working. I mean, I think there towards the end, it became a little more obvious, but I mean, there were days I was literally in tears. I was in so much pain getting home. I could barely get into my own bed, and we're all good at being the big tough guy. So I had to tough it up at work. I had to take fistfuls of ibuprofen and muscle relaxers to make it through a day.
Yeah.
But we got to bring humanity back into it and say, we don't know what is going on
Love that.
behind the scenes.
And we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Awesome. Guys, if you want to reach out, you guys go to 10-42project.org, or you can go to our Facebook page. You can call my cell phone. You can text my cell phone. I'll give it out, 515-350-6274. And if what we're saying is resonating, reach out. We want to be there for you. We may not have all the answers, but we got some ears and we can listen. So reach out to us, and we're going to continue this conversation on the next episode, and we're going to dive in a little deeper. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.